So the reason for everything. To tell you there was a plan 100 years ago. This is officially documented in my library here in Library Corner. This is written down. This is long before the internet. There's no anti-coincidence thing going on. This is a fact. There was a master plan 100 years ago by the communists to take over Britain. Okay. And there's a brilliant book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, a man who worked for the World Bank, who said how you can actually take over a country economically without firing a shot. Because wars and bombs and planes and howitzers and all that, it's a bit on top, it's a bit obvious, it's a bit smoky, it's a bit dangerous, it's expensive. And what this man did from the World Bank, he'd go into a poor African country and he was told to bankrupt them. They needed a billion or £2 billion to build the roads, build the schools, build the infrastructure. And he'd say, hey man, you don't need 2, you don't need 5, we'll give you 10. We'll give you 10 billion, here, have 20. And in the small print, which they'd sign off, it said, if you don't repay this, which they can't possibly repay it, he knows that, when you can't repay this debt, we, the creditors, now own everything. We own all your raw materials, all your water, we own your people, we own your schools, we own your roads, we own everything. And this man, look him up, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, showing that you can take over a country economically without firing a shot. As the Godfather once said, a man with a briefcase can steal more money than an army with guns. And that's a case in point. But this plan 100 years ago is even more insidious than an economic takeover of a country. And I'm saying this to try and help people, because when you hear of all the news all the time, people get very upset and very het up when you're giving your energy or you're throwing it away at the television. You're going, well, that's so unfair, it's so wrong, it's so terrible, it's that awful, Maureen. Oh, that's shocking, Brian, shocking. And it's very low energy. And when you know that there is a plan, documented, and you can just go as I do, oh tick, they've done number 7 today there, number 11 this morning, and you're not upset, you're not angry, you know it's all part of a plan which is being revealed and stopped. So what's this plan? Well, 100 years ago, remember the Russians, them again, had a revolution, got rid of their Tsar, they had the Communist Party taking over, led by one Vladimir Lenin. And at the same time, this is the 20s, we just had World War One, slaughtered in millions in the trenches of Belgium, while the officers guzzling and gulping, sending in the best hotels, sending base details. As Siegfried Sassoon, the war poet in the trenches, wrote. And we had the greatest example of the class structure in Britain, and the poor being slaughtered basically by their own side, over the top. You see Blackadder goes forth. And the communists naturally looked on Britain and said, when are these people ever going to rebel? They've just been slaughtered by their own side. And what are they doing? They're going back down the mines, back down the docks, back into the factories as slaves. These people are never going to bloody wake up. What can we do? What can we do to make the Britons rebel? So they got together what's called the Frankfurt School. And they bought this from Germany. And this is a group of shrinks, psychotherapists, clearly psychopathic shrinks. You know all about the mind and mass hypnosis and the group mind and how you can control people, not help people, empower people, how you can control them. And they looked at Britain 100 years ago and said, how we take over the country is by usurping the culture of Britain. Now, what does that mean? Usurping the culture. Because the culture of Britain 100 years ago was very simple. You had a man, maybe a slave in a factory, but he generally had a job for life. Nowadays he's got a 0-hour contract. Knows. He went on to his wife, his bag for life. You may note, divorce virtually unheard of. And he had probably a couple of children who he saw all the time. Right. So this man may have had nothing, but in a way he had everything. And so people tell you, probably because there's nothing to rob and you can't really get off with a piano, people left their doors open and there's a sense of community. There's no, lock the door, so they say, in these dirt poor housing estates all over the place. And even though people may have died young and lived in squalor and poverty, they had each other. So the Russians looked at this and said, right, We have a 100-year plan. I know people say they play chess, which is a long game, but we play cricket, which is 5 days. So we really should be onto this long-term planning. And they said at the very top of society, judges, politicians, police are going to be infiltrated by our ideas, not communist ideas, but ideas which will take over the country, the culture of Britain. This was 100 years ago. Now there's a list of these, about 200 of these things the Frankfurt School came up with, which said will destroy the culture of the country. I'll give you an example of the top 10. So next time you hear the news, you don't get upset. Number 1. I was reading last week, the 17-year-old who raped a 13-year-old in Scotland who got community service. Probably painting the fence at the children's playground, perhaps. And we could go on about Hillsborough, and you could go on about all these things, but this is injustice, yeah? Injustice is rampant. And denial of the victims of crime. There's no lady last week in Iceland store, and someone, probably an addict, followed her in, mugged her, robbed her of her wallet. You can be sure he'll get a slap on the wrist and £120 victim surcharge for Mrs. Jones there. Most unfortunate. Again, it's an injustice, and the victim of crime has no rights, it seems. This is number 1 in the Frankfurt School. Which way should we do this round? Okay, so here's the top 10. Number 1, injustice. Number 2, taking away the rights of the victims of crime. This is their plan from 100 years ago. Number 3, destroying the family unit. Taking away the rights of fathers. Hello, secret family courts. The promotion of transgenderism, really, 100 years ago. It says here, injustice is a communist mind control technique. It's so unfair. Justice is a wicked thing. It harms people. It's deception. The greatest crimes we have. So you've got a list of all these things, taking away the victims of crime. The teaching of sex education to very young children. This is written down 100 years ago to destroy the fabric of our country. There you have it. Nowadays, as we saw in Parliament, 5-year-olds being taught about anal sex. And little Louise there told, you're a little girl, Louise, yes. And your best friend's Mary, yes. Well, that means you might be a lesbian. This is what they're telling children. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that's how it is. And there's a big backlash against this, understandably. So promotion of sex to children, this is there as well. Transgender, all the rest of it. Mass immigration to create confusion amongst the locals. Tick, you see? Those going tick, 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 tick. So all of this was planned 100 years ago by the communists. All of this is now clearly established. In the 1960s, there was Philby Burgess McLean. And these were spies, double agents actually working for the Russians. And these are posh people who've been to their posh school, who've got a nice house in Surrey and a Bentley and a driver and all the rest of it. It's very easy to turn some poor Russian and say, here's some cash. But these people left on principle because they said that way of doing things is less corrupt than this way. Again, the communists took over the very, very highest levels of the spooks. Fact. See, they won the Cold War. They infiltrated the Frankfurt School. They took over the spies at the top level. Now, today, one of the main advisors to Rishi Sunak, she was there, the main advisor to Boris Johnson is, and I quote, I've got her name, she is the former leader of the Revolutionary Communist Party of Great Britain. Look it up. This is bloody true. Again, yeah, it's them again. The Russians, the communists have taken over. I'm not saying this is bad, I'm not saying it's good, I'm saying this is how it is. I heard this 30 years ago and went, oh, don't be so ridiculous. We're a right-wing country. We've got the Tories in. They may be bad, but they're not the communists. Oh, no. So can you see? Now, there's an end game here, and this is where it's up to us. They kind of said, we'll make things so bad for the British that they will rebel against their own leaders. Or we don't have to invade them because their country's finished off and their culture's been destroyed, and this strong warrior class, which on Ireland used to being invaded, used to stand up like the French. Look at us now. So this is all true. Do look up the Frankfurt School. Not to worry about anything. This is all a lot of big plan. and laugh at these right-wingers and Tories and God save the King judges who are actually carrying out an extreme left-wing communist plot. So, there you go. Thanks for watching.